So as of right now, my neon scribble animation tutorial is my most popular video, and I figured why not create a new updated version and teach you guys how to be more efficient, give you some inspiration on some ideas, and maybe kind of expand this neon art form. Here are a few examples.
You got all my soul.
And real quick before we get started, I noticed that a lot of you guys are not subscribed to my channel that watch my videos. So please make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video if you like it. That would be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's get started. Give a shout out to Vladimir Kamayak. I don't know how to say his last name, but he let me use this footage for this tutorial, so thank you very much. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to teach you how to do is this tracked face glowy thing. I'm going to come to this clip. It's got no effect on it. And so I'm going to right click, create a new Fusion clip, make sure the playhead is over that clip, and let's go into Fusion. So the first thing we want to do is do some tracking. So I'm going to come to a point where her hands almost cover her face. I'm going to go to a couple frames before, and I'm going to click on the median one and just hold down Shift and press spacebar and type in planner. Click on planner tracker. It will automatically add it to this node tree, and what we want to do is come up to her face, and I'm just going to select basically just kind of like the middle of her face. And I'm also going to come over here to the right, and I'm going to set the reference frame to set the starting point of the tracking. Next, I want to come under tracker and select hybrid point area. Next, I want to select under motion type the affine TRS shear. This worked best for this type of tracking shot. I tried the other ones and they came out kind of weird, and this one actually worked really well. So what I'm going to do now is, since I started the reference frame at the very end of the clip, I'm going to come up here and I'm actually just going to click on the step tracker to kind of go frame by frame. What I've realized is sometimes when you do track to start or track to end, the computer will go super quick and it won't do a really good track. And I've noticed that if you actually sit here and just kind of click once in a while and let the computer kind of catch up, it could be my computer or it could just be the tracker, but this works best. And there are certain times where, like, if you want to try to speed up the process, say by doing that, you can just click to the end. And hopefully that works out well. So far, so good. Awesome. Okay, so it did actually a pretty good track. So the next thing I did is I created a planner transform. So I'm going to do that. That basically creates a new node with the data that we just collected tracking her face. I'm going to click on this planner tracker and delete that. And I'm going to put this planner transform over to the side. Next, we want to go to the point of where we want to kind of start our mask or our design or whatever you want to draw. And I'm going to hold down Shift spacebar and type in background. Now, if you watch my first video on how to do this, it's kind of similar, but there are a few changes. So I have the background here, makes the whole thing turn black. We want to then come over to the inspector, and under here where it says alpha, we want to turn that all the way down. Next, we want to select background, hold down Shift and press spacebar and type in paint. And the next thing we want to do is add a soft glow. So hold down Shift, press spacebar, soft glow. And I noticed in my first video, a lot of people are wondering like why they couldn't draw on the clip. Well, it's because I think you didn't have your paint node selected when you needed to draw. Another thing is right now by default, the paint node is on multi-stroke. So if you look up here on the left-hand corner, you'll see it's kind of highlighted. It says multi-stroke. What we actually want to do is come over to the actual just stroke. That way you'll have the stroke on the frame the whole time. And I'm going to show you different ways you can adjust that actually on another clip. But for now, we want to just have that single stroke icon selected. The next thing I want to do is come down to soft glow and just change the color. I'm just going to turn the green scale down. That'll make a pink color for our paint tool. And I'm also going to click on the paint tool and come up to the brush controls and turn the size down because it is quite large by default. So as you change the size, you can actually see that this green circle that's underneath your mouse button will actually change in size, and that represents the size of the actual brush. So I'm just going to come select her eyes. I'm going to draw the same kind of thing I did for the demonstration intro video. And I'm going to do her nose, the mouth. It's not going to be super crazy looking good, but this is just for the example. And now we have one frame done, and it's going to stick to the whole shot. And the next thing we want to do so it sticks to her face is take that planar transform node that we created. I'm going to hold down shift and drag it until this line turns green, and that will automatically connect it in between the nodes here. And as you can see, it sticks to her face pretty well, but it's a little off. Sometimes that will happen. And so in order to fix that, you can actually just add a transform node underneath the planar transform. So I'm going to type in transform. And to be honest with you guys, the first time I did this, that actually didn't happen, but I'm kind of just correcting it on the fly. This is what I would do. So if this doesn't happen for you, don't worry about it. So I'm going to click on transform, and I'm just going to drag it over her face like that. And now we have this thing that kind of sticks to her face like that. And if you want to turn the size down, you can actually do that as well. Kind of adjust it to her face so it's a little bit better. And you kind of get the idea. So that's how you can do that. The tracking probably is not as good as I would want it to be, but you can always like retrack and do things like that. Not that big of a deal. You can track hands and stuff. So the next thing I want to show you is how to do that like glow effect that comes out of the actual soft glow that we have going on right here. So in order to do that, you actually just come down here to our merge node, click on it, and I'm going to hold down shift and press spacebar and type in raise. Just push enter. It will automatically connect the node in the appropriate place. And by default, you'll see it's kind of pretty crazy right now. It's just kind of doing its own thing. There's a lot of highlights here in the shot that are poking through, which I don't want. So if you actually click on raise and come up here to the threshold, you can turn it up and it will just affect the neon. You can also play with the center, so you can change the direction of the rays. So I'm going to bring this up to the Y, so it's kind of like up here next to her face, so it kind of like shines at you. And if you want to adjust the intensity or the brightness of it, you can change the weight, the exposure, and also primarily the effect blend. So you can make it completely off or on. So for example, if I come to the end of the clip, and she does this thing with her elbows on beat. So unfortunately right now, by the way, there is no music in Fusion, so you can't really hear the music. But I know when they bump their elbows together, I want the flare thing to happen. So I'm going to turn this up like that. And then kind of turn it down. I keyframe that just to kind of go up and down when she hits her elbows together. So as you can see here, her hands are actually behind the face. So if you actually want to add some more depth and make it look a little bit more realistic, we can actually mask that out pretty easily. All you have to do is come over here to the polygon tool and connect it to the merge node down here, like so. And what we want to do is just select her hands, or just the where her arms are, and kind of go out like so. And then click invert. And you can keyframe the points that we just created by just automatically moving forward with your keys on your keyboard, and then just dragging this to the appropriate positions. And so as you can see now, it's like keyframed out. The masking is showing her arms in front, which is kind of cool. I did that for the example, and so that kind of sells the effect a little bit more as well. And it's cool because the light rays actually come through. It's kind of a neat way to make it look more realistic. So in order to do the rectangle or any geometric shape, you can come here. We're going to do the same layout as before. You can kind of apply the first steps of these examples to anything to really make them glow. But in order to do it with geometric shapes, it's actually a little different. First, I want to come up here and click on the rectangle. That'll create a node for a rectangle. Next, I want to add a background. So we're actually going to attach the rectangle to the background this time. Next, I want to add a soft glow and then a merge node. I'm going to connect that down. And by default, the rectangle is a solid. So you'll have a rectangle solid here, which is not what we want. We actually want it to be like a line. So in order to do that, we want to click on the rectangle node and come over here and click on the solid so it's not selected. Then we want to turn up the border width a little bit, or as big as you like, depending on what you're trying to go for. Next, on the background, we're actually going to turn up the red, green, and blue to make it white at its core, and I'm going to leave the alpha up all the way. You can probably turn it down, doesn't really matter. There's a little bit of a difference, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. So again, if you want to change the size of the actual rectangle, you can just play with the border width here. If you actually click on the number instead of dragging this slider, you can get a little bit more of a fine-tune adjustment. You can also come down to soft glow and play with the parameters here. So if you want to, make it a green or blue, that works great. And then you can also play with the glow size. I didn't really show you guys that on those first two examples, but depending on what you're trying to go for, you can do something like that. Now, in order to animate this to give it some life, what I'm going to do is come to a point in the clip where maybe it zooms in like that on her. And what I'll have is the whole rectangle kind of zoom in on her. It'll come from the outside in. So what I'm going to do is actually add a transform in between the soft glow and the merge. And I'm going to make the size super big. Then I'm going to keyframe. So I'm going to click on the keyframe diamond icon right here. And I'm going to move into the point where it zooms into her. And I'm going to turn the size down all the way. So now we have that animation effect. So when it zooms in, and if you want to change it to be faster, you can come up to the spline. And for these specific parameters, since that's the only node tree that we have, if we come in here and click on transform, and if you use the plus and minus buttons on your keyboard, you can zoom in and out to see better on what we're trying to look at. And if you click on the keyframes here, and you want to just round them out real quick, you can just select a keyframe and push F, and that will kind of give it a little bit more of an ease. And so, for example, if you want to replicate this, you can just copy and paste all the nodes. I just highlighted all of them, put the merge node in here, and say you want to adjust just one of these and you want maybe the same speed or you want to have it at a different time. What you can do is come into the spline tool and select the transform number 2, which we just added, and select the 2 points and just move them over. So now you have 2 that kind of go like this. And yeah, so that's just a super easy and efficient way to kind of multiply what you just did. And you can copy and paste and, put as many as you'd like. Another cool thing that you can do is we can keyframe the color. So for example, this is our second one that's coming in. So if we want to keyframe it starting here with the color, what we can do is come down to soft glow. And over here on the right, next to the color scale, we can change any of these to pretty much kind of change color until it keyframes and goes to the point of not existing in the shot. I'll just keyframe these. And I'll get to the point where this rectangle basically disappears. And I can just change the color to do its thing, maybe something like, something kind of extreme. So now, as you can see, the color is changing. And if you want to go quick with the colors, you can just go a couple frames, move these blue scales and red scales around. And now you kind of get this like retro looking color changing thing. And what's cool is like you can just play around and just play with like the glow size. You can keyframe the glow size. So for example, you can start here and go big and then change the glow size to be small towards the end. You can also play with the gain. So you could flash this on and off. Gain is default at 2. But it's coming in, and you could sit here and click on the keyframe button, go frame, turn it up, go frame, turn it down, go frame, turn it up, repeat. Just mess around with this. I'm just going back and forth, just trying to mess with it just to see what it's going to look like. And now we have something that's changing colors and flashing. It is pretty quick, but if you want to, keyframe it to be a little bit slower, feel free. I'm just doing that for the example. Another fun thing that we could do is basically just copy and paste what we have here. And instead of doing a rectangle, you can add in an ellipse. So you could just do something like that and do the same thing. Click on the solid and make the border width a little bit bigger. Make sure there's a merge node to connect the two. So now we have a merge node and a transform node kind of doing its thing at the same time. I just copied and pasted the settings, so it's kind of cool. I didn't even expect to do that, but that's what's fun about this, is that you can kind of play around and just mess with things. You can mess with the size, you can keyframe pretty much anything you'd like using the same techniques as I just showed you. So the next thing I want to show you is you can do this with text. So if you actually just copy and paste this tree, or for example, I'm just going to get rid of that eclipse node and I'm just going to come over here and click on text and add it to the background. So now when it comes in, I can just put my name, Jamie Fenn. But as you can see, you can't even make out what you just typed in. If you want to play with the glow settings, you can come to the glow, and I'm just going to reset the whole glow node by coming up here and pushing the reset button. I'm going to turn the glow down just a little bit and maybe change the scale to be something like teal. Maybe change the glow size to be something like that. I don't know. You can just play around with it. So since I copied and pasted the settings from one of these nodes here, it's actually doing the same thing as the other node. So for example, say you have an intro and you want to put your name, and then, you know, you're doing your thing, and then it zooms in and then it follows that keyframe. Boom. It's kind of a cool intro idea. Again, I'm just playing around with this. I didn't even plan on doing that. So feel free to kind of just have fun and create. So in my first video, I did a neon scribble effect. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, feel free to click on this link here above. I'll link it right now. And in that video, I basically showed you guys how to animate this neon scribble effect. And animation is done frame by frame. It's pretty time consuming, but if you practice, you kind of get a hang of it. And so this next effect I'm going to show you how to do is somewhat similar, but it is way more efficient. And you literally can draw and basically kind of keyframe out what you're going to do, how you want it to be on the clip. It's really fun. It's way faster than actually, you know, drawing frame by frame. It is a little bit different. You don't get the same effect, but it is a really fun and easy way to kind of get some handwriting effect on the screen. So I created another Fusion clip. Let's go in here. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to do the same layout before. And what I'm going to do is click on the paint node, and I'm actually going to come up here, make sure you select stroke. Now, if you select stroke, it gives you a few options down here in the inspector on the right-hand side under stroke controls. For the previous examples I was just showing you, we had stroke animation all frames. But when you click on this down arrow, there's a bunch of options here. And it's actually really cool. You can select right on, you can do right off, you can do right on, then off, and trail. So if you want to have some fun with these, this is how they work. For example, I'm going to select right on, then off. I'm going to look at the brush. Again, by default, it's pretty big. And the color, I'm going to just change to be, I don't know, something like blue. So what's cool is I'm starting at the beginning of the frame. This is a pretty still shot. This is the end of the video. If I wanted to just draw, I'm just drawing with my mouse, and I'm just holding the mouse down. That just created a bunch of keyframes for this whole clip. Now, if I play this through, Davinci actually recorded my drawing throughout this whole clip. And right now it's playing back at like probably 10 frames a second because my computer is not super fast. But now you get the idea. This is what it looks like at full speed. So as you can see, it's drawing it on, and then it trails and it draws it off. Now, say you want to adjust the speed of the right on or the right off of when it shows up and disappears on the screen. You can come up here to the keyframes, and you can click on the down arrow for the paint and click on stroke 1. And this shows start and end. If you actually highlight both of them and right click and click on time stretching, I'm going to zoom in, pushing plus on my keyboard. You can actually drag this to be faster or slower. And you can actually adjust these individual keyframes as well. So if you want to, you know, highlight all these again and turn off time stretching, you can highlight these and you can move them around. Like you can click and like move specific parts of these keyframes that you have drawn. You can highlight all of them and then click on one of the keyframes and drag them. And if you look in the viewer window, it's actually showing the change in what you're doing. It's pretty fun. You can mess around with that and just kind of play with it. Okay, so say you want to do a different effect. So I'm going to come over here to the paint, delete that node. I'm going to add a new paint and make sure you click on stroke because the options for multi-stroke, they won't really be there. They only have certain options for certain icons. So click on stroke, and you can also do this with the polyline tool. You can click 2 points and have it draw. So now as you can see, I did the same thing with the polyline tool with the right on, and it's just going to stay on the frame. That's basically just right on, but that time I used the polygon tool. Pretty fun. It's a different way you can approach things. Another really fun thing you can do is, I'm just gonna add another paint node just to start fresh. Come up here, make sure that this is selected, and I'm going to select trail. Now I'm gonna start at the beginning of the clip, and I'm just gonna go wee again. And now you can see it has like this, like, I don't know, this is ball that you didn't really even have to draw. And it also didn't start at the beginning of the clip, so what you'll have to do is come into the keyframes, and I'm gonna zoom in, come down to the paint, come down to stroke, and what we can do is you can just highlight these. This is the start, so I'll put this at the very beginning, and then the ending. So I'm just gonna readjust these. I'm gonna highlight both of them, and I'm gonna do time stretching. And what that'll do is stretch the whole drawing process of what we created over the whole timeline. As you can see here, this is the Fusion clip, so it's only 158 frames. And now you can see that we've adjusted this to kind of have a life of its own, and you didn't have to draw it in frame by frame. Much faster. You can play with this and do things where, you know, people are throwing their hands up in the air, and you can do this multiple times and edit them. If you like these kinds of videos, please make sure to subscribe. You guys are awesome. I really was excited to make this follow-up video because I know a lot of you guys like this. So feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think. If there's anything else I could add, maybe in a future third edition of this video, that would be super helpful. Feel free to DM me on Instagram. And if you have any other ideas, feel free to DM me there as well. I'm open to any type of inspiration that you guys may have, and I'll try to help you out. And if you guys create anything cool on Instagram, post it, tag me, I'll check it out and let you know what I think. Thanks again, and I'll see you in my next video.
Hey, just need to tell you something that just can't wait. Hey, maybe you'll ride away or maybe you'll stay. But hey, this old guitar and me been thinking for days how to say